What is up, everybody? My name is Adam, otherwise known as Young NBA Analyst. Before this video starts, as I always say, make sure you follow me on my Instagram at Young NBA Analyst. I post a lot of content on there, and go subscribe to my podcast because I got that going. So make sure you go over there and subscribe. And today we're going to be talking about the Toronto Raptors, my favorite NBA team. I'm going to be analyzing this whole team, telling you where I think they can go in terms of the playoffs, analyzing the whole roster. So with that being said, let's get into today's video. Starting off by going over all the important guys on the roster. Pascal Siakam is not having the best season, but I think it's very exaggerating. He's getting very overhated right now. But he's just not really playing with that same aggressiveness and confidence as we saw last season. And he is starting to take a little bit of a step back. I mean, yeah, it's a step back this season. But I'm sure he can pick it up a little bit. It's looking like it's going to be consistent, but I'm sure it's going to take a little bit of a step up. And I think we're going to see a little bit better things from Siakam, but right now he isn't playing as well as he was last season. But that doesn't mean he's not still an impactful player. It just means that his role has decreased a little bit, or at least I think it should be. But overall, I think he's still a great player. Kyle Lowry has an interesting situation because he's getting into his mid to late 30s. So they're running out of time with him, but he's still doing well this season. He is starting to regress because he isn't doing as well as he did last season. This is a common theme with the many players on the roster since the Raptors haven't started out great. I mean, they're doing better than they were like at the very start of the season, but they're still not doing well, or at least they're not doing as well as I thought they would be. But Lowry, he's still doing well. He's still their leader, and he's still a star-level player. He has a chance to become an all-star this season, although it is kind of unlikely. But I think he's still doing well. He's still very underrated. I think he's one of the most underrated guys in the NBA for his leadership, his basketball IQ, his defensive ability, his offensive ability. Everything about him is underrated, and I think he's still a very valuable piece to his team, and he's going to be very valuable in the playoffs. Moving on to Fred VanVleet, he was not playing well at all to start the season, but honestly, he's picked things up. He's starting to play with a lot more confidence and aggressiveness that we like to see from him. His defensive abilities have been great. He's been doing great on offense, shooting the ball well, and he's been a key player for them. Honestly, he's kind of inconsistent in the clutch, but he is still pretty good in the clutch. He's one of the most underrated clutch players in the NBA, in my opinion. Still doing great with playmaking. He's still good at getting steals. Great two-way player, and I think we can expect a lot of big things from him come playoff time. I'm a big fan of Fred VanVleet. I actually have a Fred VanVleet jersey. I think he's a great guy. Moving on to Norman Powell. Norman Powell, he's doing pretty well this season. Overall, I mean, he's shooting the ball pretty well, and he's had some good games here and there, but he's not doing anything special this season, or he's not doing anything that's like dramatically worse that I have to mention. He's kind of doing his thing. I still like him because he does bring a lot of offensive momentum as soon as he gets into the game, which is something I do comment on. He's still an energetic player, good off-ball player, spot-up shooter, and still a good 3-and-D player, so I respect that about him. Still a valuable player. And Chris Boucher. If you see in my last video, I did the top 5 top 5 candidates for most improved player. And I said Chris Boucher was the sleeper pick. He's not the sleeper pick, okay? Honestly, he has to be a main guy for this conversation. He's already averaging over 2 blocks a game. He's been a great rim protector. Now, I do believe that he should be playing power forward because he's not really a strong guy. Because, I mean, his nickname is kind of Slim Duck. But he's more of a skinny guy. But he is a great rim protector, good defensive IQ. He's very quick. He can move with guards on the perimeter, so that works. And he can stretch the floor pretty well. So I feel like a power forward spot would be pretty good for him because he doesn't have the physique to be able to bang with centers down low. So, but yeah, I mean, overall, Chris Boucher has been playing great, and he's been very key for them this season because he was one of the few bright spots on the roster. He's one of the few guys that have really been exceeding expectations and playing really well, and he will be in the most improved player discussion because, as I mentioned in my last video, he's improved a lot. And I'm loving his defensive production overall, and his defensive value has been great. Moving on to their other main big man who has not been playing up to expectations, Aaron Baines. Now, I mean, over the past couple games, he hasn't been playing horrible, but he's still, overall in the big picture, he has not been very good at all. He's been trash. Now, I don't know what it is. I was actually kind of excited for him to come in this season because last season when he was playing on the Suns, he's he's a big guy, very muscle. He's good down low. He does a lot of things you don't really see on the stat sheet. He works hard. He's hustling, grabbing rebounds. He can stretch the floor. So I was kind of excited, but he just has not played at all to my expectations. He's still doing those things, just not nearly to the level that I thought he was. So he's been a bit of a disappointment, but I still think he's going to be an important player for them, although I would rather have Chris Boucher over him, because Chris Boucher is coming out more off the bench, which isn't bad. And like I said, Chris Boucher is more of a power forward. But I do think they need to get another center besides Aaron Baines, because Aaron Baines in no way replaces Marc Gasol or Serge Ibaka. Quick side note, Marc Gasol and Serge Ibaka, their impact is really starting to show on this team. I think a lot of fans were taking it for granted because now their big men are not nearly as good and is very much showing in the Raptors' success. Serge and Marc were very impactful, and while Aaron Baines is not a horrible player, he's not very good, but he's not terrible or anything. He's not like Alex Len, who got cut from the team. He does not even come close to filling the shoes of either Serge Ibaka or Marc Gasol. So I definitely need to get another big man to help fill that role. Moving on to one of my favorite players on the roster, OG Anunoby. So OG to start the season didn't play too well. He wasn't shooting the ball too well, but he's really turned that around. He is playing incredible. He's averaging over 2 steals a game, I'm pretty sure, which is great. And overall, his defense has been incredible. His defense was really the thing that stayed consistent. He was playing great defense at the start of the year. He's starting to shoot the ball a little bit better. And I think what I like about him is he's always been a great 3-and-D player. Elite defender. I think we're going to see an all defense appearance from him in the next 1 to 2 seasons because he's an elite defense player. He's a great 3-point shooter. One thing I like about him is even though he's not polished here yet, his shot creation is starting to improve. And we are seeing he is getting more ball touches, getting more experience. And I think that's what he needs to progress. And his shot creation abilities, they are starting to come. Now, they aren't really great yet, as I mentioned, but they're starting to come. And that's going to be key for him because shot creation is key in today's NBA. And it's very, very important to your team's success. Moving on to a guy who doesn't get nearly as much playing time. Well, not nearly, but doesn't get as much playing time as I think he should, and that's Matt Thomas. Great 3-point shooter, great spot-up shooter, great at moving off ball. I think they need to get him a little more playing time just because if you get him in the game, he can knock down a few threes for you. And if they're in a situation where they need a 3-pointer, he is your guy. He shoots very well from the 3-point line. And Nick Nurse's coaching has been a little bit weird this year. I'll get into that later. But I definitely think Matt Thomas needs a little more playing time as he's an incredible 3-point shooter. Moving on to the rookie Malachi Flynn. Malachi Flynn had some great minutes in the preseason, and I had a lot of faith in him coming into the regular season because he played very well in the preseason. He's a good defensive player, and he can operate on offense as well, so I was excited for him. But he just really isn't getting as many minutes, which, he's a rookie. It's kind of understandable, but I think if they get him a little more exposure, then that can work for him because I do think he has a lot of potential. I thought he was going to make an all-rookie team based on how he played in the preseason, but that's not going to end up panning out because of his minutes. But I still think he can be a valuable player. And moving on to the guys who don't get much minutes but are still very valuable to the team, we have DeAndre Bembry, who's a pretty good defensive player, and he can knock down from 3. He's a good 3-and-D player, and just a nice addition if they're short on some guys, and if they're looking to play him, he can bring some good stuff. And Yuta Watanabe, who had an incredible game against the Kings the other day, he's great. He brings it all to the court. He is a hustle player, and he's going to give you 100% effort. And that's really what the Raptors need, because last season they had Rondae Hollis-Jefferson, who did a similar thing. Watanabe is not as good as Jefferson is, but he definitely fills that same role as that hustle guy, as that guy who's a good defender, can knock down threes. And overall, I think they could get him some minutes. It can definitely work out for them. He can be a wild card for them and a bit of an underrated guy. So that's a lot of the important guys on the roster. As you can see, some guys aren't playing too well. Some guys are pretty good. And overall, I think their team dynamic is good. They're still good defensively. And I still think they're a pretty good offensive team. They're still a pretty good team. I think they're the most underrated team in the NBA right now. But the thing is, Nick Nurse's coaching has been a little weird so far. because like I mentioned, he hasn't been playing some guys as much as I think he should, and usually his coaching like works wonders. He's still one of the best coaches in the NBA, but I just feel like it's sometimes not clicking for him this season. And maybe he's not fully to blame because a lot of the players have just been underperforming, and you can't coach underperforming. You just can't. Like, sometimes the shots just aren't falling, and it is what it is. But I think if he really tries to get this team to buy into a system, not saying he hasn't, but if they really try to get him to motivate the team and get them playing into a great system, because we know Nick Nurse is great at throwing defenses at teams, creating defense, creating great plays, then it can really help turn the team around. Nick Nurse is a great coach, and they rely on him a lot. He was the coach of the year last season. They need this incredible coaching from him, and I just feel like he's not quite delivering, but I definitely think he can deliver, but it's going to be key for this team. So, how well will this team do? Well, that's an interesting question because it all depends on how well this team ends up doing, how consistent they're going to be. Are they going to continue to play at this level, or are they going to turn it around? I think they are going to turn it on a little bit, but we're not going to see them get like a top 4 seed. The Raptors, I don't think they're contenders anymore. They're not quite contenders anymore, unfortunately. But it's just something that Raptors fans are going to have to deal with. I think they're still going to be a playoff team. Of course, there are teams that are fighting for the bottom of the East. Guys like the Wizards and the Knicks and the Cavs. So it's going to be tough because the Knicks and Cavs are playing really well. But I think overall the Raptors can improve. A lot of their guys can be doing better than they are right now. And if Nick Nurse starts bringing up that coaching, a lot of the guys just start playing a little more aggressive, playing to the ability they need to play, then I think they can make it happen. I'm not going to say it's like magically turn around, like all of a sudden Pascal Siakam is going to be averaging like 24 points a game or 23 points a game, like he was doing last season. And it's not like Lowry's going to return to like his 2019 form when he was incredible. Right? So it is what it is, but I think overall this team has what it takes. They have playoff experience, they know what they're doing, and they do have very bright spots on the roster. They got guys that are improving, and it's just going to be really a matter of how consistent can they be and can they turn this around. That's really the big question here, is can they turn this around? And none of us know yet. Only time will tell the answer to that question, but I think if I had to give my prediction, I say we will see a slight turnaround. I think they will be playing a little bit better than they are right now when it comes to like the middle of the season and later in the season. I think they're going to be playing at a higher level. They really just haven't found their groove yet. But I think we can expect probably like a 7 to 8 seed, maybe 6 seed. That may be a little bit audacious. But if they can just get into the playoffs, that's still a win for us. And even though we may get knocked out in the first round or probably the second round, I don't see us getting past the second round. But even if that's the case, then it is what it is. I definitely think that the Raptors need to make some movements this offseason. Movements they need to make right away are, like I mentioned earlier, getting a big man. And yeah, that's probably the only thing I can think of right now. Get a strong big man. A couple available are Andre Drummond and possibly Marvin Bagley. I don't know if I'd want Bagley yet. They are in talks about getting Lonzo, but I don't know what role that fits because Lonzo has not been playing well this season at all, and Van Vliet pretty much already fills that role. So, I don't know, but maybe Andre Drummond's not bad, I guess. But we'll have to see what happens. Honestly, I'm excited for this team. I'm going to be keeping up with their games because I'm going to see. I want to see if they turn things around. I really want to know the answer to that question. So that being said, that'll wrap up today's video. Make sure you guys subscribe, turn on those post notifications so you don't miss any of my future videos. Make sure you leave a like, leave a comment, let me know what you think. And with that being said, always remember, clutchness forever.